Hey beautiful people, what is up and welcome back to my channel. I'm Jamila and I love all things beauty. I love all things makeup, I love all things skincare, and I especially love sharing my tips and tricks for how to find high-end and luxury beauty products at bargain prices. If that sounds like something you're interested in, I would absolutely love if you would consider subscribing and joining the fam. Okay, so I have a little bit of time today, so I thought I would do a very quick chatty get ready with me as I just get ready for the day. There's like two topics that have been bubbling in my head as like makeup news that I really want to focus on. First and foremost being, you know, what's going on with makeup prices. I feel like I've been following this for a while. I actually did one video about this previously that I will link down below. So I want to talk about that. And then I also want to talk about makeup dupes. I had a really great conversation with a group of girlfriends about whether or not dupes are okay or if they're thievery. So I want to talk about that as well. All right, per usual, I'm not going to go too deep into what I'm wearing makeup-wise, but it'll all be linked down below. So yeah, let's just dive right in, right? Okay, so I'm going to be using the Luna Beauty Nude Prism palette. I do have a couple of meetings that I want to look a little basic for. That's a terrible term, but yeah. So this is what the palette looks like. I actually got this on BoxyCharm for $19, which I think is more than 50% off the original price. So it is just a really cute nude neutral palette, but the shimmers look really, really nice. So let me bring you guys in a little bit closer and then we'll just get started. Okay, so let's start with what is going on with makeup prices. So I did a couple of videos, well, I did at least one video a couple of weeks, I think, honestly, probably a couple months back, talking about the trajectory of makeup prices. And partly that was inspired because I had started seeing, you know, brands raising their prices, but also there were some brands that were lowering their prices. And it was, you know, it was very interesting to see what brands were doing, because it was like, okay, so what is the trend going to be? Are we going to continue to see brands increasing? Are we going to see them continue to lower their prices? Where is this going to go, right? And I think yesterday was the straw that broke camel's back, as they say. Because I saw a post from Glow Recipe that said that they were planning to increase their prices by between $1 to $3, I believe, because of inflation, the cost of materials, everything, blah, blah, blah. And I don't use Glow Recipe for my skincare, so I don't know why it triggered me so, but I think that it was, you know, the tip of the iceberg, or, you know, the very last straw, I should say, when it comes to makeup and skincare and the prices. Because I have seen this trend in brands either posting about the fact that they're planning to increase prices or just increasing prices and not saying anything at all. And I think the first brand that actually triggered me a lot when this was happening was Tom Ford. Yeah, I definitely think it was Tom Ford. Now, Mr. Thomas has his quads, which used to be $88, and then one day it was randomly $89. There was no announcement. There was no, hey, things are costing more, we need to increase our prices. Thomas just decided that he wanted to charge $89, so he raised his quads to $89. And then the other day, come lo and behold, his prices are now $90. $90 for 4 eyeshadows. That, I was like, this is absolutely ridiculous. You cannot tell me that you think it's okay to increase your prices to the point of having people pay $90 for 4 eyeshadows. The brand was already severely overpriced prior to this price increase, and now it's just ridiculous because Tom Ford is a brand that doesn't necessarily have the most consistent quality, if we're being honest, and is definitely not worth, in my opinion, $90 for 4 eyeshadows. But that's just my opinion. So I was, you know, quite annoyed by the prices that I saw Tom Ford putting out. And then kind of like right after that, I believe ABH came out with their new palette. Now I do have the palette, I just haven't used it yet. But they came up with their new palette. What is it even called? The Nouveau palette, right? And I believe that palette was $50-something, which in my opinion was also like, okay, Anastasia, what is you doing? Because with the palette, with the price increase in the palette, we got technically more shadows, but less. So we got bigger size pans, but we got less shades. And then we also stopped getting the brush. Now, I don't particularly care for the brush. I never really use it. But the fact that we got less shadows, less shades, and the price went up, and we got the brush taken away from us, I was like, make it make sense. How does this even make sense that you are giving us less but charging us more? And then, you know, there are brands like my faves. Patricia has increased her prices. Her motherships are now $128. And I said this in the previous video, you know, it doesn't bother me too much. Or it didn't bother me too much at that time. But now I'm mad. Now I'm real irritated with these brands that are increasing their prices. And I think, you know, seeing Glow Recipe put out that statement, it was like, it felt really fake to me. Like, I would prefer, I don't know if I would prefer this, but, you know, if a brand just decides to raise its prices and not say anything about, oh, you know, the cost of living, inflation, blah, 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 we have no choice but to increase our prices, I would probably respect that a little bit more than this fake, I don't even know what to call it, but it just feels fake when brands put out this statement about the cost of everything impacting their business. Now, have things gone up? Yes, I absolutely believe that things have gone up. You know, brands are being affected by the new, I don't know, by inflation and what is happening in the world overall when it comes to pricing of products. But the margins for makeup and skincare have always been ridiculous. And I mean, like, ridiculous. These brands make so much money off of us because what it costs them to make these products is so far away from what they sell it for that y'all could have eaten that loss and been completely fine. And, you know, there are brands that stood up and said, you know, we are not raising our prices, or we're planning to lower our prices because we know times are hard and we want to take care of our customers. And I was like, yes, we are all struggling. We all still want to, you know, consume makeup and skincare and beauty products. But, you know, with the way in which every industry is going, sometimes you just have to choose gas. Sometimes you just have to choose food. So it just feels real fake when brands come out or have started coming out lately and saying, you know, the price of everything, we need to increase our prices, blah, blah, blah. Like, it just, I'm like, miss me with the bullshit. Like, miss me with the lies. And I get it. There's more to brands than just making the products and selling them. Like, they have to pay their staff. They have a team of folks that they need to support. Get that, 100% fully. But I also don't think that I see the connection between the brands increasing their prices. Now, maybe somebody from the brand will come out and say, yeah, well, I actually got a raise and I can feel a little bit better about it. But as of right now, I just feel like brands are using this moment and honestly exploiting this moment so that they can say, hey, we increased our prices because of X, Y, and Z. I really do think that it's we have an opportunity to increase our prices and no one will question it because of the fact that, you know, we're in not a recession, but, you know, we're at a point where inflation is really high and everything is increasing. So if we increase our prices now, people won't question us. It will just be accepted. But I think it's ridiculous. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. Especially when it's, you know, brands that are already really high priced. Like Tom Ford, I get it, it's $2 from $88 to $90, but he didn't need to raise his prices. Why? For what reason? You know, a brand like e.l.f., when they raised their prices, I was like, you know what, I get it. The products were already cheap. They had products that were already like $1. Like, you could get a e.l.f. brush for like $1. Now it's $2. So, you know, them raising their prices when they have not really done so in a very long time, I was like, okay, I fully see that. But Patricia, she didn't need to raise her prices. She could have kept her palettes at $125, which are already extremely expensive and, in my opinion, quite overpriced. Don't get me wrong. Y'all know I love Mama Pat. She's my favorite eyeshadow brand, period. But it's overpriced. It's overpriced. I can't change the fact that her makeup is overpriced. It is what it is. Same with other brands like Natasha Denona, Charlotte Tilbury. It's overpriced. Like, I wish Charlotte would come and try to tell us that them peeny weeny little quads that she sells for $56 need to go up to like $60. Like, all of these brands are on some BS right now, and it's quite irritating. So, I don't know. I wanted to talk about this because, you know, in my mind, I've been feeling like brands are manipulating and exploiting the inflation that's currently going on right now to increase their prices and blame it on that. And I want to know if I'm the only person that feels that way. So let me know down in the comments below if you have also felt like they're just exploiting the situation, or if they genuinely need to increase their prices because of, you know, how hard it is to source materials and create products nowadays. Okay, I'm liking where these eyes are going. This palette's cute. I do want to go in with a couple of shimmers on the lid. So I'm going to start with Sam. It's like a pinky shimmer. Put it, ooh. Okay, I'm going to put that in the center. Now this palette reminds me a lot of the new Glaminatrix Nearly Neutral or Nearly Natural palette, which I want so badly, but you know, my spirit just kind of take the pre-order and the wait time anymore. Like with most things, like some things I might be willing to wait for. I just don't know if this is one of them. I don't know if I have the patience in me to sit here and wait for that. But after looking at this, I feel like the color story here is so similar that I honestly could probably just use this and be fine. Okay, so the eyes are pretty much done. Loving where this is going. I'm gonna go ahead and start to prime my face. I'm gonna use this Tatcha Silk Canvas Primer. I have a sample of it, so I just wanna get rid of it at this point. So I'm gonna use that to prime my face. That smells nice. Okay, and while we're, ooh, I think I applied too much. Way too much. Is this supposed to be this white? Jesus. Okay, we'll fix it. Anyways, while we are, you know, priming and getting ready, I want to switch gears to talk about the next topic that has been bubbling in my mind. And that is about dupes, you know. Dupes okay, or is it thievery? Now, the reason why this has been a topic of interest to me lately is because of the new e.l.f. Halo primer thing. What is it even called? Halo filter something. So if you don't know, you know, this is, I don't think this is right. Jesus. Okay, I think I used too much, but also why is this so white? Oh, here, looking all kind of casket ready. Jesus. Okay, so I'm gonna go in with my Charlotte Tilbury foundation. Anyways, so as I was saying, you know, this topic really sparked for me because e.l.f. just recently released their Halo Glow Filter product, which is a dupe for the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless. What is it called? The Hollywood Flawless Filter. So it is, as I understand it, it's like a glowy kind of primer, but it has like pigment to it. It's not a foundation. It's kind of in between. So you can use it underneath your foundation to give you a little bit of glow, but it also does have coverage in it. Now this has been touted as, you know, one of Charlotte's big products. It is known, you know, that's what she is pretty known for, among other things. So, you know, everyone has always kind of like equated Charlotte as the product when it comes to that type of thing, right? And then, you know, a couple of weeks ago, e.l.f. released the Halo Glow Liquid Filter. Now, from all of the videos and reviews and YouTubes that I've seen about it, it is an exact dupe for the Charlotte Tilbury, both in terms of performance and the way it looks underneath, the way it looks when it applies to the skin, the quality. I've heard that it's an exact dupe. The biggest difference is the price. Now, Charlotte's Hollywood Flawless, I think, retails for, let me check, retails for $44. And the e.l.f. one retails for $14. So major difference in the price tag. And you know, I had never really given this much thought, but somebody had commented on another post and they basically said that, you know, why are we up in arms when big brands copy small indie people of color owned brands, and you know, we are really upset about it? Why do we not feel the same now that e.l.f. has copied Charlotte Tilbury and basically duped their entire product? Everything from the way in which it performs to the packaging is the exact same. So why is it that we are mad when big brands do this to little brands, but we're not mad when, you know, e.l.f., which is a big brand, does it to another big brand like Charlotte Tilbury? You know, is it thievery? Should we have the same level of anger for this situation versus one that is like Charlotte copying a smaller indie brand? And first and foremost, I think it's a good question. I think it's a valid question. And I get what they were trying to say, but do I necessarily agree? Honestly, no, because I don't think the situations are the same. So I wanted to come and, you know, have like a bit of a discussion about, you know, how do we, or how do us, you know, what are your thoughts on dupes within the makeup industry? And why is it that there's so much attention and backlash when it comes to dupes, specifically in beauty? And, you know, I had started having this conversation, like I said, with a group of girlfriends on IG talking about it. And we had differing opinions. You know, not all of us agreed. But, you know, there's the beauty of having conversation. You don't have to agree with everybody. You don't have to like their stance. But you can be respectful about it. So as we're going through this, you know, please be respectful. Don't any comments. Like, this is not the place. Promise you it's not the place for disrespect. So let me share my thoughts. And then I would love to hear from you guys on any comments. So when it comes to dupes, I have always been kind of meh about it. Like, I understand that there are some people who don't believe in shopping dupes, who think that it is thievery, how you are stealing from another brand. And I completely understand that, and I think it's a very valid position. Because dupes are meant to copy, for the most part, something that's already been created. And I think, you know, a lot of brands, a lot of companies just in general, they put a lot of thought and energy behind creating a product, whether it is developing the color story, figure out the right formula, all of that. And, you know, they work really hard to develop this for somebody else to come in and be like, okay, thank you for doing all the hard work. I'm going to copy it and now sell it at a cheaper price point. And thanks, peace. So I understand the outrage that exists because of that, because I do feel like that is 100% frustrating. However, I also feel like dupes have always existed, right? And in my conversation with my girlfriends, you know, one of the things that I pointed out is that when I go to the grocery store, like, there's an 80% chance that I'm not going to be buying the brand name products all the time. I'm gonna look for the dupe. Like, I don't need to have brand name peas. I could buy ShopRite peas. So, you know, dupes aren't just specific to the makeup or the beauty industry. It happens everywhere. But you don't see people getting mad at ShopRite for copying or off the brand name products, right? I feel like we don't see the same level of outrage that happens when it comes to beauty. Now, I do think it's a different level of, you know, creativity and artistry that's attached to that. And artists are real sensitive about their art. So, as they should be. So I think that that is, you know, a different situation. But I just say that to say that dupes have existed within the beauty industry for like ever. And not just beauty industry, but in like all industries. I think one of the reasons why I've never really been too bothered by dupes is because I think dupes serve a purpose. You know, dupes are intended for people who want the effect or the color story of a specific product without paying the price for that product. Like, not gonna lie, Charlotte's airbrush filter thing is $44. It ain't cheap. It's very expensive. And e.l.f.'s own is $14. It's so much more affordable. When it comes to beauty, I have always been of like the strong opinion that beauty should be accessible for everybody. Like, you shouldn't be barred from experiencing a certain type of product or a certain effect just because you can't afford to or don't want to spend the money on that specific product. Because I think there's also, you know, the people who were like, this is just kind of out of my price range and my budget right now. But then there are people who are like, I could afford it. I just don't want to buy it. I don't want to put my money into something like that. And me personally, you know, while I can afford to buy Charlotte, there are some things where I'm just like, I would just rather buy the dupe. Like, I don't need to spend my money on your product, Charlotte, if there's a cheaper version available. Now, I think the other reason why this situation feels different to me than, you know, a large indie brand copying a smaller indie brand is because both e.l.f. and Charlotte are two huge brands in this beauty industry. You know, e.l.f. is sold everywhere. It's a real big drugstore brand, and Charlotte is sold in Sephora. So it's not to say like e.l.f. is hurting for customers or Charlotte's hurting for customers. And I feel like at the end of the day, the market that is buying from e.l.f., they are not buying from Charlotte. I think they have two very different customer bases. I think that the people that are looking to purchase from e.l.f., that have been purchasing from e.l.f., are not necessarily the same people that are out here looking at Charlotte and purchasing from Charlotte Tilbury. So they have, I think they serve two very different purposes because they're serving two very different markets, right? You know, there are people who will never be interested in buying Charlotte's products because it's so overpriced. And for them, e.l.f. is where it's going to be at. You know, there are people who just don't buy luxury makeup at all. They just buy drugstore makeup. So they're not looking at Charlotte's products because they prefer drugstore makeup. This is the people who are buying Charlotte Tilbury. There is a very small chance that they are also e.l.f. customers. If you have been in the luxury market, there's a very, in my opinion, very small chance that you suddenly are like, oh, I need to go and start buying drugstore. Like me personally, when I started getting into makeup, I started in, I would say like in MAC, which I guess is more high end. And I have tried some drugstore products, and at this point where I have been using a lot of high-end and luxury products, I could never see myself going back to being only drugstore. Quite frankly, I have like no drugstore in my collection. I have a few e.l.f. products, but that is it. So I think the reason why it feels different for me is because they are serving two different markets. Whereas an indie brand, because it is so small and new and up and coming, there's like this chance that people don't know about the brand. So you are actually stealing their customers, because when it comes, like everyone knows e.l.f., everyone knows Charlotte Tilbury, but if it were like a little no-name brand or a small indie brand, you know, there's a huge chance that a lot of people don't know about that brand at all. And, you know, it's a lot less accessible because products like e.l.f. and Charlotte Tilbury are not only available on like Sephora and Ulta, but you can go in stores and buy it. But small indie brands that work on, you know, developing new and innovative products, they aren't being sold in these major retailers. Like you have to buy them from the brand website. And when another big brand comes in and steals the idea completely and creates their own, it completely diverts customers away from that smaller brand, if that makes sense. Now, I also want to point out that this is not the first time that e.l.f. has copied a product. Like the Tatcha Silk Canvas Primer used to be, well, it does still come in like a putty form, and e.l.f. actually created their own putty primer, which, as I understand it, was completely inspired by or stolen from the Tatcha primer. So I think that is an example of like e.l.f. completely copying another brand. Okay, why is my camera overheating? Okay, sorry, I had to adjust the positioning of my camera a little bit because it was overheating. Okay, so what was I saying? I can't remember what I was saying, but you know, one of the points that I was making before, I think, is the fact that there are some people who just, you know, certain luxury products or even high-end products are out of their price range, so they are not going to buy it. And then there are also people who just don't like luxury makeup, and for them, they would much rather spend their money elsewhere, even if they could afford it. And I think one of the reasons why this triggered me as a topic, and I wanted to bring it up as well, is because in the same original post that I saw talking about this topic, you know, there were comments that were basically saying that people should just save their money to buy the original version because this is thievery and, you know, it gives you something to aspire to. Really, you need to aspire to own a luxury makeup product. That is bullshit if I have ever heard it before, right? And, you know, telling people, you know, just save up your money so you could buy the expensive version, the real version. Like, are you kidding me? Like I said, there are people who could 100% absolutely afford the original version, but just don't want to. And even so, why are you in people's business? Why are you minding people money? To accuse people of stealing or thievery because they have decided that they don't want to spend their money on a luxury product when there's a dupe or an alternative version available is just complete BS. And I think that was the piece that really kind of like set me. That was the piece that really set me off, because I was like, the audacity. The absolute audacity. Now, I think why people are up in arms about the e.l.f. product specifically is because of the fact that e.l.f. didn't just like copy the formula or the performance of it. They actually copied everything down to the packaging itself, and even the name is like somewhat similar in a way to the Charlotte Tilbury version. There are other products that folks have shown that do dupe the vibes and even the performance of the Charlotte Tilbury product, but it's in a different packaging, it's a different formula, it just feels and looks different. So I think this one struck people like differently because of how, you know, copy and paste it was. And I get that, I get why people are upset, but trust me, Charlotte is fine. Like I said, I do not believe that the people that are out here buying e.l.f. are Charlotte's customer base. I don't. I really and truly don't. I think that the people that buy Charlotte, that love Charlotte, will continue to buy Charlotte and will continue to love her products. And e.l.f. is catering to a completely different base of customers. So I'm not pressed for that. And I think it is disrespectful and complete bullshit for people to try to accuse others of supporting thievery because they don't want to buy Charlotte's expensive ass liquid thing. I don't even know what it is, let's be real. So I'm just going in with my Dior. Now, this isn't the first kind of like dupe product situation. You know, there are brands that are based entirely on duping other brands. For example, Alter Ego is one of those brands that creates dupes of high-end and luxury palettes. Now, they've done a lot of Natasha Denona, and they've done a lot of Huda Beauty, and one Pat McGrath palette. And I know some people feel some kind of way about it, where it's like Natasha, Pat, you know, Huda, they spend a lot of time developing this specific color story that they have. And, you know, their palettes are not cheap, you know. A Pat McGrath Mothership is now $128. Natasha's palettes can run you from $65 for the midi palette to $125 for, like, the bigger version. And Huda's palettes are $65. So they're not cheap palettes by any means. And I get it. They put a lot of time and effort into developing the color story, figuring out the theme to release these palettes. So I understand why people are upset that, you know, brands like Alter Ego completely dupe the palettes. I mean, it's a literal copy and paste. And this might be another unpopular opinion, but honestly, I don't care. I really don't. I do not care that those palettes exist, because I think that if people want the color story of Natasha Denona, but they don't want to spend $65 or $125, they should be able to get it. And I've heard folks say, well, why don't you just, you know, make your own color story from the singles that you have, or, you know, you can piece together pieces of other palettes. Who wants to do that? Why? Why should you be forced to do that if you have a brand that is selling your dupe? I mean, the thing is, at the end of the day, you're not going to get the same formula, so it's not going to be the same quality. And I have a couple Alter Ego palettes, and it's definitely not the same formula. I have the Metropolis dupe, and I have the original Metropolis palette. The formula is not the same, but the vibes at the end of the day when you finish your look is the exact same. And I understand that. I understand that the quality and the performance of Natasha Denona is 100 times better than the Alter Ego palette. But if I was the type of person where I wouldn't mind working a little bit harder to get a nice look, I would 100% buy the Alter Ego version. The point is, I like ease and simplicity, and Natasha's quality and performance is 100 times better. It just is. So for me, because I could actually afford to buy Natasha Denona, and I appreciate the experience of having it and everything from the packaging to the performance of the shadows, I will buy Natasha Denona. But if push comes to shove and I am on hard times, or if I did not have the income, the disposable money that I do now to put into makeup, I would not be trying to force myself to save a bunch of money to buy a Natasha Denona palette or a Pat McGrath palette. You know how much things you could buy with the amount of money it costs to buy a Pat McGrath palette? Listen, so I fully understand people who are like, that is just not where I want to put my money anymore, and I want to have a cohesive palette where I don't have to pull this shade from this palette or this shade from this palette to dupe the vibes. If there's an exact dupe that exists, I'm gonna buy it. I'm using my Dior bronzer, which has like a huge divot in it. I feel like I'm gonna hit pan soon on this, and it is such a beautiful bronzer. Oh, it's like butter on the skin. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and finish up the face, you know, add some blush and whatnot, and then I'll come back and wrap this video up and give you guys my final thoughts. Okay, I'm back and this is the final face. Let me bring you guys in a little bit closer because I am loving this. Oh, before I do that though, I do want to say real quickly before I forget, I am wearing my bronzer in Kiss of Rose. This is what I'm using for blush today. If I can get it open. So this is the Kiss of Rose bronzer. And for my highlight, I went in with my Pat McGrath Divine Rose highlighter. This is really pretty. I use that in the brow bone, on my cheekbones, and then I did go back into the palette for my inner corner highlight. But let me bring you guys in so you can see this. The Luna Beauty formula is dope.com. Okay, anyways, now let me just finish up my thoughts to wrap things all together, specifically around sort of the idea of dupes. Now, just overall, my opinion is that dupes have their place, right? I think that when it comes to makeup and the beauty industry, there's only so many different times you can do or create something that's new and innovative. So it's inevitable that dupes will exist. Like, imagine if the first multi-chrome brand, or imagine if like Cleona came out with multi-chromes and then was like, okay, nobody else can come up with this color story. Nobody else can create this specific color multi-chrome. It doesn't make sense, right? And I think that dupes have their place in this beauty industry because there are going to be people who don't want to spend the amount of money that it costs to get some of the high-end and luxury products, either because they can't afford to or they just don't want to, and I think each is fine. So I do feel like dupes have their place within the beauty industry and the market because it helps prevent a monopoly. It helps prevent, you know, having one brand have that one and only product that nobody else has and them charging a crazy amount for it. I think when it comes to dupes, it's personal choice. At the end of the day, it's your decision if you want to spend your money and buy the original or buy the dupe version. It's entirely up to you. And I don't think people should be shamed for not wanting to spend the crazy prices on the original product and wanting to go for the dupe version. I think it's absolutely ridiculous to try to tell people how to spend their money and to try to convince them that they are bad or thieves because they're supporting a dupe brand. I think that is complete bullshit. I think you should mind your business and hush your mouth. That is what it comes down to, in my opinion. If you don't want to buy the dupes, don't buy the dupes. That is your choice. I think that if dupes bother you so much and you have an issue with it, don't buy it. But that's your money. Don't try to tell other people how to spend their money. Now, I do think that we need to be careful, though, when it comes to this, because there is a situation of large brands stealing from small creators, stealing from smaller brands, and we need to be mindful of that because I do think that's a different level of exploitation because larger brands have a different customer base, they have a different level of funding, they can advertise, they can do all of these things that smaller indie brands cannot do. But when it comes to e.l.f. and Charlotte Tilbury, both of them are large brands. They just operate in different markets. e.l.f. is drugstore, Charlotte is luxury. They are not selling to the same customer base, in my opinion. So I could care less what e.l.f. and Charlotte are doing. Where I start to feel bothered is by Charlotte or e.l.f. messing with no-name brand, or, you know, the brand that's just getting started, that doesn't have the amount of money and resources to pump into a product to promote themselves, and just copy and pasting and stealing from them. I think that's where I'm like, that don't feel right. You know you're doing something wrong, and you know you're purposely, you know, picking on a brand that cannot fight back, if that makes sense. So at the end of the day, I think where my feelings lie is that it's personal choice. If you support it, you support it. If you don't, you don't. I think that we should be respectful of people's decisions and what they choose to buy or not buy, and let people live their life and spend their money how they want to. Now, that being said, I do want to hear you guys' comments. So please let me know down in the, you know, comments below what your thoughts are as it relates to dupe brands. I want to know what you think about e.l.f. copying Charlotte Tilbury to begin with. And then I also want to know, you know, do you support dupe brands? Do you not support them? If you do, why do you? If you don't, why don't you? You know, I am very, very open and always listening to people's thoughts and opinions. Like, I think it's so important to get different sides and different perspectives. So I want to hear you guys' thoughts down below and how you feel about dupe brands and whether it should exist, it shouldn't exist, it's a slippery slope. You know, leave all that in comments down below. Now, I think that's it I have for you guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead and hit that like button. Leave a comment down below, like I said. Subscribe if you haven't already done so. I'm thinking about doing more of these, just kind of like chatty get ready with me, just talking about what's going on in the makeup industry and how I feel about it. So leave a comment down below. Subscribe if you haven't already done so, and join the fam. Share with a friend if you think they'll like the content. As always, thank you guys so very much for the support. I love you all so very much. Please be safe, take care of yourself, and I will catch you in my next one. Bye!